and the front yard at the Star, where, yeah, chilly outside, but about to heat up inside as the Cowboys get prepared to really step on the accelerator when it comes to that 24/7 job of talent evaluation and acquisition. The NFL draft, of course, the end of April, but free agency at the start of March, the opening of the business year at the March 9th, I think it is. And it will be at that time when we find out just how interested the Cowboys are, not just in grabbing talent regardless of need, talent for talent's sake, which is what the draft is usually for. This team believes that, and most do, but also plugging in holes, which is what free agency can be for. We have this specific need, there's that specific guy, it's a fit. There is no argument, I don't believe, regarding the Cowboys' biggest hole. Go through the roster, and assuming the retention of Dak Prescott, something that we've talked a lot about, and we've got more details for you on that later today, by the way. Running back, good shape. Wide receiver, good shape. Tight end, good shape. Offensive line, if everybody's back and healthy, good shape. Defensive line got fortified last year to some degree. Linebacker, I guess they always need them, but secondary is where the need jumps out, and particularly at cornerback. Obviously, contractually, you've got fine young man, fine rookie coming off his rookie season, Diggs at one corner. You've got Anthony Brown, friend of the show here, solid. He's under contract. And then at cornerback, otherwise, a lot's up in the air. By the way, everybody keeps writing, C.J. Goodwin, cornerback. C.J. Goodwin is a special teamer. Quit putting him as a cornerback. He's never going to play there. They'll never let him play there. I don't think he wants to play there. But we can count him, too, in this conversation. So what do you chase? You draft him? Do you wait for the draft? Do you skip over free agency while you wait? That seems unwise. Inside this building, in Will McClay's office, probably not on the wall anymore with little magnets, probably just in a computer, are almost certainly by now the completed rankings of who's who in the offseason. And they don't just do who's free agents, they rank them all. They have an opinion, a grade on every player in the NFL. So talking specifically about cornerbacks, you want to make sure that you don't just grade guys that are scheduled to be free agents, because what if so-and-so wants to trade so-and-so? You better have an awareness of him too. And the Cowboys do that, and do a pretty good job in terms of awareness. The last time they got caught with their pants down when it comes to a secondary guy, Honey Badger. They really didn't think very seriously about it at the beginning of free agency, and they were wrong. And here we are, what is it, 5 years later now, and they're still wrong as Honey Badger does the things he does at a Super Bowl level. To cornerback and the needs. We now know that Patrick Peterson is probably going to be made available by the Arizona Cardinals. We know that Richard Sherman, the longtime Seahawks great, last with the 49ers, is also a street free agent. Before we get to what we think, with an educated guess, the Cowboys think here. Patrick Peterson, you talk about the lack of exposure hurting a guy's reputation. He should be a household name. 10 years in the league, came in as a premium draft pick. Everybody knew he was going to be great. He was great from the start. I believe he's made 7 Pro Bowls in 10 years and 3 first-team All-Pros. In a normal circumstance, first of all, that would make you an all-decade performer, almost certainly. You'd be on the very short list. And it makes you a Hall of Fame candidate. That's pretty good. When we look at Tyron Smith in Dallas, we look at Zach Martin in Dallas, we look at their Pro Bowls and we look at their acclaim, and by the way, we look at them on TV every week. And that takes nothing away from Tyron or Martin and their brilliance, but the world knows how good they are because the world gets to see them every Sunday. I don't know that the world knows how good Patrick Peterson's been, but I also don't think the world knows that Patrick Peterson, to use a very harsh judgment, but this is the judgment of NFL people, kind of a year and a half ago fell off a cliff. 2 years ago, I think he played 10 games and then had the PED thing. And then last year, I believe he played all 16. But despite his claim that he had a solid year, I don't think the NFL thinks that. I don't think scouts and coaches think that Patrick Peterson had a good year last year. So, $14 million cornerback that seems to have fallen off a cliff, obviously brought to the table over the course of a long time incredible physical gifts and intellectual gifts too, which is key to where we're about to take this conversation, by the way. Intellectual gifts at cornerback. Does he still have it? Does he still have it in terms of the distinct possibility that he's thinking of himself as, hey, listen, I'm a $14 million cornerback? Let's revisit that in a moment while we go to Richard Sherman. You've heard Dan Quinn talk on this channel about what he's generally looking for at corner, just generally. And he talks about length. And boy, does Richard Sherman have that at a basketball-like 6'3" frame. He talks about his ability to plant and go. Richard Sherman still has that. Now, he did have the injury last year that allowed him, I think, to play only 5 games. But it wasn't it doesn't figure to be an injury that, changes his ability to do what it is he does, if he can still do those things otherwise. He talks about ball hawking skills, and certainly Richard Sherman has that. And then he talks about intelligence. And Quinn says, my model of a cornerback is one that has a long frame, is a ball hawk, can plant and go, and has a high FBIQ. He's talking about Richard Sherman. There's no question in my mind that when these guys sit down and do their grades of who's who out there, that the new defensive coordinator here, Dan Quinn, says, I know a guy. Now, Richard Sherman is a $9 million corner last year. In fact, $9 million APY for the last 3 years, I think. So Richard Sherman has a right to think I'm a $9 million corner. Will the market tell him he's right? I fear for the Cowboys' sake it will. Will the market tell Patrick Peterson he's right at $14 million? I fear for Patrick Peterson the market will tell him he's not. Both those players, I think Sherman is on record as this. I think Peterson is kind of whispering this. They want to go to a contender, which takes us to another chapter here that we talk about a lot. And by the way, thank you for hanging out with us as you do, thousands and thousands and thousands strong and getting stronger. They want to go to a contender. They want to be, and when you get to be, in Peterson's case, he's 30, and he's never played in a real contender, or not a consistent real contender. Obviously, Sherm has been to the top of the mountain and will turn 33 in March. If you can't blame them for their view that, listen, I'd like to get one more payday, but I'd also like to make a championship run, and I don't want to be twiddling my thumbs doing it. And so, are the Dallas Cowboys viewed as a contender? I mean, we view it that way. I mean, look at this place. How could it not be? But are they really? Does Patrick Peterson look at the Cowboys roster and say, if Dak wouldn't have gotten hurt, that's a championship roster? Does Richard Sherman look at it and say the same? I suppose we have to wrestle with Richard Sherman's somewhat long ago comments denigrating Jerry Jones. But Richard Sherman does have opinions. He's the guy that put his 2 cents in on how Deshaun Watson should go to the Jets. Because he likes Robert Saleh, and of course so does Deshaun Watson. But otherwise, I'm not sure how that's Richard Sherman's business. But he has his opinions. He's obviously very bright, and he epitomizes what Dan Quinn is talking about at cornerback. So I'm going to suggest here, as an educated guess, combined with my thoughts, and I'd like to hear yours as well. Patrick Peterson, $14 million, and kind of fell off a cliff as a player. Probably not going to work. Richard Sherman hasn't lost speed because he never really had that as his great weapon. He's got all the other stuff. So when you're talking about checking the boxes, hey, Dan Quinn, let's put up a box here. What do you want in a cornerback? Well, I want length. I want ball hawking skills. I want to be able to plant and go. I want speed, and I want football intelligence. And then the scouting department, personnel department, the coaching staff says, well, Richard Sherman has 4 of those 5 things. I think Richard Sherman is an absolute scheme fit and should therefore be talked about here as somebody that the Cowboys will examine. I don't, you know me, I'm not going to go, Cowboys are going to, I don't know that. It makes too much sense for the Cowboys to do anything but examine Richard Sherman, and that's as far as we'll go. That when Will McClay looks up at his magnet board, opens his filing cabinet, or opens his computer and looks at cornerbacks who can fit, veteran free agent cornerbacks who can fit, Richard Sherman comes in very, very high on that board. And for Dan Quinn, when he puts in his vote, maybe at the very top of that board. Fish, out.